Hello, Cleveland! This is Alan Keller from the Too Much Effing Perspective podcast, and welcome to Quick Taps, short episodes with short stories for short attention spans. Our theme today is entitled Crashing, Spinal Tap moments on the road when our musical guests went to catch some Z's, and we're lucky they didn't also catch a disease. Our first story is from Elle Kempner from the band Palehound that just released an album called Live at First Congregational Church. Elle tells us about crashing at some pad that had so much crap in it, there was barely any room for the band.
I booked the show. It was at this cool coffee shop in Mansfield, Ohio. The guy who booked the show worked at the coffee shop. He was so sweet and he was dressed really nice and he looked really nice. He just looked like a normal dude, like totally chill. And so he was like, you guys should definitely just stay with me. I always host bands. I have plenty of space. We didn't sell a ton of tickets. You guys aren't going to make a ton of money. And I was like, okay, cool. That sounds good. So after the show, we pack up and we follow him. He gets there first. We're all sitting in the car and we look at his porch. You cannot see any part of the porch because it is just like layers of beer cans. And we're looking, we're like, this looks kind of bad. My drummer at the time is like, do you think this is not a good idea? Like, do you think it's going to be nasty inside? I was like, no, they probably just threw a party. They didn't clean up yet. It's just the porch. It's not a big deal. And we have no other options. And it's like midnight, 1 o'clock at this point. And so we take all of our stuff out of the car, our sleeping bags, whatever, go. And the guy meets us on the porch and he has this beautiful dog and she's so cute. And she comes out and she's so friendly, wagging her tail. We're petting her a lot and burying our face in her and so cute. And then I'm realizing that she's scratching herself a lot. And I was just like, damn, she seems like itchy. She's got something going on. And he was like, yeah, she's got fleas. And this was after we had all just been fucking burying our faces and hands in this dog. And so we were just like, oh, okay, and he's like, but don't worry, they won't jump on you. That's not how fleas work. And I was like, I'm pretty sure that's how fleas work, but that's okay. Let's keep going. So we get inside the house and he's like, let me show you where y'all are going to be sleeping. And immediately just this stench hits us. That's just like everything that could be rotting smells like it's rotting. It's horrible. It's thick. It's like dark in this house. And there's just trash on the floors everywhere, like beer cans, cigarette butts, takeout food containers with food rotting in them that are just on the floor. These giant exposed wires running up the stairs of the house connected to an extension cable. It's just like a complete mess. There's fly tape in the kitchen that is like layers deep of flies. And then he shows us where we're sleeping. He's like, well, I have this pull-out mattress and this couch. And we're like, oh my God, what the fuck are we going to do? We should have left that night and just been rude about it. But we didn't because we were just trying to be nice. And he was so friendly, this guy. So my bandmates sleep on this pull-out couch. It's just covered in stains and like weird shit is all up in this couch. I sleep on this couch that is covered in cigarette butts. And I set up my sleeping bag. There's this giant industrial trash can right next to the couch. And there's a swarm of flies just swarming around this trash can. So that night I slept on this couch on cigarette butts with flies landing on me and buzzing in my face the whole time. The next morning we woke up, we were like, God, that was the worst thing ever. We have to leave. And I went upstairs to use the bathroom and I'll never forget this because I hadn't been upstairs yet. And I was like, how does this guy live like this? And I saw him in his bedroom across the hall and he was just calmly getting ready for the day. His bedroom was a mattress and a full length mirror and nothing else. And he was wearing this really nice outfit and just getting ready and checking himself, trying to look presentable in the mirror. It was really weird, like American Psycho vibes. We left.
Our next story is from blues guitarist Bex Marshall, who recently released her album Fortuna. Bex tells us about the time she had to crash at a pad that just may have been the site of a murder, which probably would have been fine if they had cleaned a little before the band showed up.
I've labelled it the Psycho Suite. The shower curtain's got stab holes in it. As I was looking in the mirror, I saw behind me the door was actually got 2 handprints in blood at the top of the door, like somebody's been up against the door. So in the big scheme of sort of staying in really rough hotels, this is up there with it.
Next on the docket is James Joseph from the band James and the Cold Gun that has a new song out called Fragile. James tells us about the time he and his band stayed at a pretty sketchy place and escaped by the skin of their teeth. Actually, it was someone else's teeth.
We were in a place in the UK called Hull. It's pretty rough, Hull. It's like a very industrial town. I don't think bands play there very often at all. The show went fine. We get to the place we're staying for the evening, which is a hostel in Hull. We ended up having a pretty good night's sleep there. But then in the morning, the one rule in the hostel was that after your stay, you have to strip the beds and put all the bed in a wash basket, something like that. Our guitarist, James Biss, he wakes up and he's stripping the bed. And then under his pillow, he finds a whole tooth. And it's not just a little tooth. It's like someone's back tooth with the root and everything. And then he just notices that his bed was covered in blood from the night before. We were staying there on like a Sunday night, and I think someone had stayed there the night before, obviously stumbled in drunk, banged their head on this bunk bed, and just pulled out one of their molars and just put it underneath the pillow for safekeeping.
And our final Spinal Tap moment comes from Michael Deni of the band Geographer, which recently released their album, A Mirror Brightly. Michael tells us about the time a one-night stand turned into a one-night standoff.
We played Dallas, amazing show, and my bandmate meets a lovely lady, and they have a connection, and she's like, you guys can all sleep at my house. And we're like, amazing. So she has this big house with a pool, and it's like 2 a.m. We're like, we gotta go swimming. So we have our shirts off and we're in towels. And then she's like, do you guys want anything to eat? And I'm like, oh yeah, I'm starving. So I go into the kitchen with her and she's showing me stuff that I can eat. And her roommate comes in and he's very hostile and he's plastered. He's just like, what are you doing in my house, man? Oh, we just played a show, and he was actually at the show. We just played a show, and she was nice enough to give us a place to stay. And he's like, yeah, well, the only person who fucks my roommate is me. And I'm like, dude, I'm just eating. And she was like, what are you talking about? And he won't let it go. And then my bandmate is there to have a love connection with her. And I'm just like, is he going to be murdered like in the night? So he's like getting really aggressive. So I leave, get all of my boys, and like 5 of them come into the room. Yes, we are 5 humans, but we're all very gentle. And so my drummer starts to diffuse the situation. He's like, yeah, we're just having a good time. He's just got his shirt off because he likes to swim, and he's just drying off. The roommate doesn't seem to understand that she has a life outside of him and autonomy. She seemed very dedicated to that autonomy, which was very strange because it was like, these two are not in a relationship. Like, she's just like, oh, shut up. What are you talking about? And the guy eventually gets pacified. Like you walk into these situations where you're just like, these people are in an extremely unhealthy dynamic. And now we are in the midst of that. And we're like a lightning rod for this dude's bizarre behavior. It was very frightening. I really thought I was going to get pummeled.
And there you have it, a few bedtime stories from the TMEP show. I hope you enjoyed this edition of Quick Taps. Please rate and review us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever else you listen to our show. And tune in next week when my co-host Alex Hoffman and I return for more Spinal Tap moments on Too Much Effing Perspective. And I hope my COVID clears up by then. See you later.
Although it would be as great as having armadillos in our trousers, this podcast is not affiliated with This Is Spinal Tap, and no person or entity connected with the film has sponsored or endorsed its content. This podcast is not affiliated, sponsored, or licensed by Authorized Spinal Tap LLC or Century of Progress Productions. Too Much Effing Perspective is a Milwaukee Talkies original. Evergreen Podcast Network.